In this video, I'm going to talk about how the various ways to add an item into OnePlace, and then we'll add an item and talk about the fields that you're going to fill in when you create a new item. So like in other videos, clicking on the plus sign, you can click on that and click item, and that will pop up the add new product or service item with the different fields that you're going to fill in. I'll come back to that in just a moment. You can also click on Control F10 if you want to just use your keyboard. If you're on the item list, like the other ways of adding records, you can click on the new of that type. So item list, if you click new, it's another way to add an item. If you're on an item record itself and you click new, same thing. That's another way to pull up this pop-up form here. If you are on, or if you're on, or you're creating a quote, an order, an invoice, anything that uses these items, you can then, I'll just open an existing one here. And if I just add a new item that isn't there, I'll just say test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Find it. I'm going to press enter to search it. In this case, if I'm searching for it and it's not there in any of the columns, I can click add, and that will allow me to add a new item on the fly and then select the item when I'm done. Now, unlike customers that you might add one at a time or vendors you might add one at a time, if you are a wholesale distribution company or you're an auto body supply type company where you have tens of thousands of parts, it doesn't make a lot of sense to add them one at a time. Usually you're going to want to either import them from suppliers or import them from an old system, or if you have search catalogs, if a certain item fits several different makes and models of a car or some kind of whatever, some kind of like a washer or a dryer or something, you might have parts that fit multiple different makes and models for the same part. In that case, you'll use a catalog. So if I click on the catalog tab and I click manage catalog, you can then build your search catalog using the managed catalog screen, which will be covered in a whole different video. But there's a button down here that says add new items from the catalog item. So if in the case of auto body supply, there might be 500 new parts that hit the market every month. This tool is used to help create the search catalog applications. And then in the process of doing that, you can automatically import in a whole batch of items in one motion. So just keep that in mind. It's covered in a different video, but you can import them in mass. Whether you sell auto parts or something that has a catalog or not, you may want to also use the import tools, the import wizard. If I click on that upload, then that will take me to the import wizard. And again, this is covered in a different training video, but I want you to be aware of the fact that you can import lists of items in mass. You can also update them in mass. So, when you're here, you can pick the different type of table we're talking about. We're going to import into the item list or the quantities in stock or the price levels or the search catalog, vendor item numbers, things like that. You pick the one you want and then you browse, and we'll cover that in a different video, but it's very powerful, very time-saving tool to use the import wizard to either import them or update them, maybe update an existing list of prices in mass using the import wizard. So let's go ahead and add an item. Let's say, before I do that, I want to mention one more thing. When you add an item, when you give the item number and the description and the bin location and maybe the category and the subcategory and the OEM number and the bin location and things like that, those all go into one table. Those are all different fields that help describe the item. But when you also have the ability to add unlimited vendors with their prices, well, those are stored in a different table that relate to this one. They're all on the same screen, but technically these vendors are stored in a different table. And so when you add an item, you'll see there's a way to add the default vendor when you're adding the item. Also, if you're adding an item that has multiple prices, technically unlimited price levels can be added. You'll see how you can do that at the same time when you're adding the item. So let's go ahead and I'll click New Item. And then I will type an item number, just again, that test item number 12345. Test description, I'll call it whatever. Type. This is a kind of a whole separate video. Could be. I'm not going to make it a whole separate videos, but these 4 types are the types that are applicable in QuickBooks Online. And because we integrate tightly with QuickBooks Online, we've made our types to be equal to their types. In summary, I can tell you that 99% of your types are going to be inventory or service. QuickBooks supports bundles, which is another name for assembly, but they don't provide a way to sync. So if you click on this, we're going to tell you that we can't really support it, but tell you how to do it here. So instead of bundle, you're going to have inventory, and then you will come over here and you can just pick assembly, and that, as long as you have assembly selected, it's the same thing as a bundle in QuickBooks Online. The easiest way to remember which type to choose is if it's something that's not a physical tangible item, select service. If it's anything else, whether you stock it or not, select inventory. It's pretty much that simple. In the future, we'll have a little bit more a wizard type of add item, and it will cover that in more detail. But in summary, if it's tangible, if it's something you sell that's a tangible item, select inventory, whether it's a bundle or not, whether you stock it or not. If it's not a tangible item, it's some kind of service, select service. Category. In this case, it says search category. It's a way of categorizing the item. I'll go ahead and pick front bumper and components. Subcategory. I'll select something that goes along with that. An OEM manufacturer. I'll go ahead and pick one of those. Now, if I wanted to add a default vendor to buy this item from, then I could come over here and select those fields. You'll see that it's starting to add these. So now those fields are there as well. So if I add these here, it's going to go ahead and add them as one of the vendors that are on this tab here. We don't have the ability, since you could do unlimited numbers, we don't want to give you 500 fields. We just want to give you the one, and you can add more on the vendors tab, or you can import more and they'll come in and show up on that tab. So I'll just pick a vendor, X vendor's item number, their cost, case pack. We'll say there's 3 in a case. What's the lead time to get it here from the vendor? If they're overseas, maybe we'll say 45 days. What's the cubic square feet if it's going to go in a container? What is the amount of cubic square feet that this might fit? We'll say 1.5 cubic square feet. What's the OEM number? If there's a different number than your own number, call that whatever you want. Again, if you're using the catalog tools, it'll bring all this in for you. List price. we'll say the list price, if our cost is $50, we'll just say the list price is $150. OEM price is typically even more. PO category, there are tools for creating purchase orders that can look at all of your sales history or your min-max levels, either one, or even a combination of those. And so if you're going to, maybe in the case of an auto body supply, I'm going to buy sheet metal type parts. So you can call these whatever you want, but this is a sample body supply company. So I'm just going to say sheet metal. And that way, when I run the PO category, when I run the replenish stock tool to replenish all of the bumpers and fenders and hoods and things, then I can just narrow it down to that type of part. So you want to give that category here when you're making the part. Pricing category, maybe I want this to be, I'll say it's a front bumper components, but maybe I'm going to price things differently if it's a fender versus a headlamp versus a hood versus some kind of cooling. So that's what the pricing categories are about. And that's covered on a separate video, 2 different videos, in fact. We talked about how you can have on the financial, how you have the price levels. So that's what this is all about. So if you say enter pricing levels, you can go ahead and I'll just click auto calc prices based on the discounts that I set up for those price levels in the settings. I'll show you that real quickly as well. As soon as I'm done here, this fills in automatically, which are the accounts that we're going to use to fill in with QuickBooks. That's also part of the settings. So, and I have here sync with QuickBooks. I'm not going to go ahead and do that just to save a little bit of time. It's telling me that I've got one of these. There's one more thing I want to do. Add item to searchable catalog. If I want to add this item to our catalog search for year and make and model, then in this case, I'll put a year range, 2008 to 2010. I'll say it's a Honda Accord. Quality indicator, is this going to be an aftermarket? Is this going to be a CAPA certified? These are things that will make sense to somebody who is selling auto parts and not make a lot of sense. You can ignore all this if you're not selling auto parts. But anyways, now that I put that in, I can click save, and that will add the item, take me to the item record on a new tab, and you'll see the details that I've just filled in here. You'll see the vendor that I added on the fly here. You'll see the price levels that I added. Oh, looks like there must be a problem with that. Oh, I didn't ever click it. That's right. If I would have clicked OK, it would have added those price levels. I also want you to be aware of where to set up some of these preferences. If I click add a new item, and you saw how some of these preferences, like the pricing levels, where do those set up at? Those, and where are these set up at? Those are over here in the global settings. If I go to settings, I go to item settings, for example. Here's where you can fill in some defaults. When you're setting up a new item, you can have it default to that item type that I talked about. You can have it default to the certain accounts that are in QuickBooks Online. Right down here is where you can see where I added price levels with automatic discounts for those. So that's important information to understand for making the entry of new items quicker and easier. That about does it. There will be a different video that will cover this item detail screen in detail on a different video. Hope this has been informative, and I do hope you have a great day.